Politics. Am I right, my fellow chuds? Politics are one of, if not the most hot-button issues on the entire internet. Despite this, many avoid talking about them, which in all fairness is typically the correct play. Even I stray away from talking about politics as someone who can't even vote. What would I have to say, right? When talking about it, most believe that politics are their own community that is totally isolated from others. However, it is anything but that. Politics are not only diverse in the media they submerge in, but also the types of media they are portrayed in. I believe there is no greater example than that of pipelining. Pipelining is a phenomenon in which one is exposed to and consumes a great amount of provocative content leaning towards one political direction. The severity can truly vary with this process. Mostly, when this term is brought up, it refers to the alt-right pipeline, one that promotes an unhealthy amount of radical anti-SJW material all the way to anti-Semitism. Pipelining acts as a rabbit hole. One video turns to hundreds of them, all spewing different levels of political degeneracy or conspiracy. Despite the seemingly dark and vast nature, it comes in many public forms and forums, and is very ambiguous. Pipelining, although ironic, can even take place on popular apps like TikTok and Twitter, showing it isn't as niche as many think, nor is it as hard to be swallowed by said pipeline. The online space is a perfect segue for pipelining. When one is faced with it, it is easy to fall into based off the social media algorithms. However, taking a step back from the online presence, it is easy to realize how restlessly avoidable the submergence was. But when one isn't in the correct headspace of doing so, and there is no platform to step back onto, it proves helpless to attempt to reason once they've fallen. And all that is left to do is to watch them descend, losing every ounce of sanity along the way. This is inside the mind of Emily Youcis, NewGrounds' worst artist.
Fall asleep inside your arms. Kill anybody that means you harm. Alcohol for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Tired of choice to numb the pain. Drown all the voices inside my brain. Intoxicated or cure. Don't we play the world of course. I'm so sick of you. You're so sick of me.
On the 30th of May, 1990, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania welcomed Emily Youcis into the world. Growing up in the same exact town with her brother, Emily's early fascination with art, particularly web art and animation, became evident. As she entered adolescence in the early 2000s, the concept of web animation was very much on the horizon. Emily was immediately drawn to corners of the surface web that pertained largely to art, like NewGrounds. However, with the newfound anonymity of the internet, it wasn't long before she was pipelined into particularly inappropriate material for someone of that age. However, not all was online for Emily, as they had experienced a grave misfortune at a young age, a trauma that stuck with them for years to come. At a very young age, Emily had been sexually assaulted by her father while her mother was in the hospital, using the internet and NewGrounds web animations as a coping mechanism and a way out. She initially created two animations in 2005 and 2006, Osama Gets Low and Alfred Gets Fixed. Both are very questionable. The quality, although seeming terrible, was not low at all for the time. The contents, on the other hand, were a bit outlandish to say the least. Hello everybody, Do you like to see pop culture icons made fun of and disrespected? Well, then this is the movie for you. Fat Dog and his pals take you down the toilet on a journey through pop culture land, complete with Osama bin Laden, Michael Jackson, Saddam Hussein with his lover Doritos, Conan O'Brien, Cal Penn, and John Heder. Plus a pothead Teletubby, an alcoholic Furby, and the underwater sex god Father Oceana. Oh, just for the record, I have nothing against Conan O'Brien, Cal Penn, or John Heder. This being only a glimpse of what was to come. In 2008, Emily would be accepted into the Temple University in Philadelphia. With the stress of post-secondary education, most find a hobby to alleviate some of that stress, and Emily would be no outlier to this concept. A popular outlet was her involvement with the underground punk scene of Philadelphia, where she formed a band, Emily Youcis and the Vagrants, which performed renditions of other songs such as Zombie by the Cranberries and others in bars and basements. As a monetary outlet to fund these projects and projects in general, Emily resorted to working the concessions at the Philadelphia Phillies Stadium. Ironically, this would prove to be her best shot at fame, as she was quickly labeled the Pistachio Girl for singing and cheering as she sold her pistachios. Quick spoiler, the fact that Pistachio Girl would make headlines on news articles later on in her life for all the wrong reasons is really funny to me for some reason. Throughout her time at Temple U, she continued with web animation, specifically on NewGrounds. It was clear Emily had a talent for not only art but also music, particularly her vocals, as she could apply to the animations from her underground punk roots. She continued the Alfred character mentioned before throughout the majority of her animations, which would prove extremely popular, sometimes for the wrong reasons. Whatever reason it may be, however, it landed her on the Smut Cave YouTube channel as the face behind Alfer and the Emily Youcis NewGrounds account. The episode touches on not only her web animations, but also her involvement with the underground punk scene of Philly. Although this involvement with online creators, specifically YouTube, would produce minimal results after this point, she had her own show hosted by Smut Cave, yielding very disappointing outcomes in comparison to her previous works. Throughout this video, I have mentioned a specific character that was essentially the face of Emily's web animations. That character being Alfer. Alfred plays the biggest role in Emily's popularity to date, but to understand how Alfred affected Emily's online reputation and general expression in her art, we need to rewind a little. Alfer is Emily's most prized character, featured throughout her animations. A mentally ill dog with past traumas of abandonment, neglect, and sexual assault that play out throughout the many of animations surrounding the character. Alfred is first introduced as the focal point of the short comedy animation of Alfred escaping from getting neutered. However, Alfred is only introduced as an actual character with a personality in 2007 with the creation of Rise of Alfred, a 7-minute long animation revolving around Alfred becoming a manager at a knockoff Taco Bell and getting manipulated by his dictator Alter or split person to murder everyone at the establishment due to his prior trauma with abandonment and neglect issues. Throughout this video, it's clear to tell that Alfred suffers from a form of BPD or split personality disorder, driving him to do the things that he does. Later the same year, the most prevalent and popular work that Emily would create would be published, that being the 3-part series, Alfred's Playhouse. Alfred's Playhouse surrounds the plot line of Alfred having a panic attack and general manic episode about their previous trauma with sexual assault, after being reminded of it by a red popsicle. In the first part, Alfred relives their trauma and has an episode in response to the reminder of being assaulted with a popsicle as abhorrent chaos ensues. In the second part, Alfred is visited by their friends in the wall, in which they do some graphically degrading things to Alfred before leaving him to spaz out on the ground, foaming out of the mouth. Alfred then yearns for love and pity. They then cut themselves as a display of confusing and demoralizing imagery plays, finally falling into their mental descent. In the third and final part of the series, Alfred is seen falling into a large, deep pit, signaling said mental descent. It cuts to Alfred tied up in a chair, being lectured by their dictator Alter, seemingly the same one seen in Rise of Alfred. Dictator Alfred explains that the distinction between the Playhouse and the reality is that the Playhouse attempts to hide reality, that all things Alfred experienced in reality were dumped on the dictator Alfred as a means not to have to experience said trauma. Dictator Alfred digresses that Alfred cannot experience the feeling of being loved in the real world, and that feigning ignorance in the Playhouse is the only way to experience said feeling. Dictator Alfred offers Alfred a bone treat. As Alfred eats it, the ropes are untied and replaced by a leash, held by none other than their dictator Alter, signifying Alfred's willingness in feigning ignorance to reality and continuing to live in their own delusions under the guise of Dictator Alfred. As Dictator Alfred sits on his throne, taking control of real Alfred's body, leaving the real Alfred to the mercy of the Playhouse characters, Alfred begins to fly and be disillusioned, remaining in the Playhouse forever. Alfred's Playhouse can be interpreted in many ways depending on the stance in its imagery. Firstly, it can be seen as nothing more than an edgy, alt-right degen series that proves nothing more than Emily Youcis using an ignorant, deplorable sense of humor. Simply a shock video that has no deeper emotional or sentimental connections and serves as a passage to either promote political biases or general edgy material. Many people who have a more surface level understanding of Alfred's Playhouse, such as mindless TikTok reactionary drones, often fail to understand the creator behind it or what it could possibly relate to. Frankly, this interpretation of Alfred's Playhouse is very closed-minded and lacks critical thinking or analysis. The latter is that Alfred's Playhouse is an artistic expression of Emily Youcis' internal trauma, being reconvened into an extreme depiction of what re-experiencing said trauma feels like. Putting the more edgy and random imagery aside, it is genuinely a rendition of the things sexual assault victims go through when reliving their trauma, and how trauma is the grounds for many mental illnesses, such as the split personality disorder that Alfred experiences throughout the third part of the series, and moreover, how it can change people's lives for the worse. As Emily details in the post, she was assaulted by her father at a very young age, which would have prompted the detail into the story of Alfred. Oh, one more, just one more. Give me another, please, sir. Fill up my comment boxes with your love. Yes, it is true. I did not have a healthy, normal childhood. I was sexually abused, among other things. Now my family is somewhat in shambles. But I suppose you would deem all that my fault, and that I probably deserve it, even because I made a dog having a drink and a wank in my cartoons. Go on, say it. Say I deserve to be molested at night while my mom was in the hospital. Say it, you bad little boy. Now you do realize that just because you went to Disney World does not mean you had a good childhood, am I right? In fact, plenty of children a year get sodomized by those rat characters, just like it will happen to you and your most likely wretched cunt flap of an obese wife. And yet, I can still feel joy and love and pleasure and the highest of highs. Animating is probably the closest I've come to heaven in my life, and that's what I get out of it. The most you probably get out of your wife every night is a few wailish moans before her dry pussy repels your chafed limp dick once again, and you go to sleep unsatisfied and angry for having to lie beside that lard-filled ass. Unsatisfied and angry just like your reviews. Yes, I do find a great kick out of the people finding me offensive. It does give me the chuckles. Just like I've gotten a kick out of your wonderful walls of text, dear sir. Oh please just give it one more wall, please. Come on, tell me again how shitty I am. Yes, I love it. Your biggest fan, Emily R. Youcis. However, this would not be the last time we see Alfred by any means. But Alfred's Playhouse is the most important facet of media detailing his character. Alfred was Youcis' true calling to a platform to share their art on. However, the irony of this series and the foreshadowing of future events for its creator would be almost uncanny. In 2016, internet edginess was almost at an all-time high. The golden era of YouTube content was circulating, shock sites were still up and running at this point, and there was almost no boundaries on what one could say online without repercussion. Some reflect on this time as a way of contrasting with our current day, trying to show the public that our generation has turned soft or woke. Whatever your opinions may be on this matter, it generally isn't a secret that the internet was known for a very loose cannon sort of commentary at this time. During the same year, many years after her introduction to the online community off of Smut Cave and Alfred's Playhouse, Emily would continue to make animations surrounding Alfred and his character. In 2014, Emily made a trailer for the Alfred Film. The trailer describes the film as Alfred injecting himself into the internet to become the world's most famous necrophiliac porn star. Later the same year, Emily made a parody of the movie American Psycho starring Patrick Bateman, instead with Alfred, showing more necrophiliac tendencies as another general teaser for the upcoming film set to release in the summer of 2017. The first actual clip of the movie was posted on February 17th, 2013, which shows Alfred and a dark black dog with red eyes named Labby. Labby takes Alfred to show him a big surprise. Said big surprise turning out to be nothing, as Labby leaves Alfred in the middle of seemingly nowhere. After venturing off and talking to a watermelon creature, Alfred hallucinates Labby as dictator Alfred narrates the same truth of Alfred being incapable of love due to his neediness and clinginess. In the second segment of the film, called Dead Girls Strip Club, Alfred wanders to the land of the exiled dead, to a dead person bar. As Alfred takes the advice of the drunken Gromlin, or the previously mentioned watermelon creature, Alfred drinks his sorrows away with hard liquor. As a dead person convinces Alfred to take his own life, an electrocuted corpse girl comes on stage, stopping him from going through with it. As she disintegrates due to the mass amounts of electricity pumping through her body, Alfred is forced in her vaginal area, now infested with maggots and bugs. He wakes surrounded by corpses and devastated as to what he just went through, finding solace in necrophilia, letting dictator Alfred seemingly take over once again. On the 30th of December of the same year, the third segment was released, in which dictator Alfred steals the body of one of the exiled dead, in which he sings a song about fucking the dead. Alfred continues on his spree of necrophilia. Truly disgusting material, if I'm gonna be frank, and I would not recommend anyone to seek out this material. In fact, I'd actually recommend you to do the exact opposite. Alfred finally takes the corpse back home before the next episode. On the 31st of March, 2015, Emily posted another segment of the Alfer Film, called Return to the Playhouse. Alfred returns home, in which he is taunted by the many characters from not only the Playhouse, but also around his home in general. He slouches and falls asleep on the couch, where he is accidentally connected to the TV, as a show with dictator Alfred comes on. Alfred awakes to see Labby in his home, where he directs him to take the body downstairs. This is when we learn that Labby is either who initially caused Alfred's trauma, or is Alfred's own manifestation of it, as Labby references the popsicle from Alfred's Playhouse. Alfred crawls with the body in hand, attempting not to be noticed by all of the other Playhouse characters who have tormented him for the longest time. As he passes a ventilator, the friends in the wall notice him before more illicit things happen to Alfred. Finally, the last we've seen of Alfred was the Ascent of Alfred 2016, which demonstrates Alfred plugging himself into the internet. All content aside, the production value of this animation in particular is one of, if not the best I've ever seen. Whether that is me not watching high quality web animations or not, I give credit where credit is due. Watching Alfred's Playhouse in comparison to the Alfer Film, it is clear that Emily changed a lot between 2007 to 2013 to 16. Honestly, from my perspective, their animation slowly started to lack the sense of it all. The only identifiable part being the return to the Playhouse, the rest consisting of flashing, disgusting imagery, and abhorrent amounts of necrophilia. This change in actual purpose shows in their work, the only being the concept of Labby and Alfred's pre-existing connection to the Playhouse, also showing the creator's debilitating mental health situation. As I previously mentioned, one of, if not the most significant memories of 2016 was the ruthless, without consequence style of the internet. However, there is something that took place during 2016 that was equally significant: the election of President Donald Trump of the Republican Party.
Go ahead.
That's right. CNN can report that Hillary Clinton has called Donald Trump to concede the race.
Later the same fated year, it would all spiral out of control for Emily. To clarify, Emily had grown up with 4chan. To be specific, she frequented the Poll Politically Incorrect board. For a moreover unstable person, as seen with their prior internet outlets, it's no surprise when they went off the metaphorical political deep end. In mid-2016, Emily became enamored with Trump, most likely due to his announcement of candidacy for the President of the United States in early June. With his campaign at an all-time high, and the fact that Pennsylvania was dominated by Trump during the election, it's really no surprise that Emily started her descent and burned her bridges very quickly. March 2016, the MagFest panel. An animation panel typically involving those from the NewGrounds origin would be underway, hosted by animators like Oni Plays, Vivian Madrano, Rice Pirate, and many other prolific animators in the online sphere at the time. An hour and 3 minutes into said panel, an intoxicated Rice Pirate tells a seemingly intoxicated Emily to shut the fuck up, before Emily comes on stage and crouches beside Mick. She would go on spewing nonsense into Mick's microphone about conspiracy theories and anything of the sort. Some of these passages include, Kesha is an Illuminati puppet and she has handlers, plugging her Patreon, and my personal favorite, alright Vivs, if you did porn, I swear to God, you'd make like 10 times more money because your characters are fucking hot, and you gotta do porn. Emily's involvement definitely wasn't the worst part of this panel. The fact that Mick is unabashedly intoxicated was definitely a key factor, but Emily being involved in the first place was a major mistake. This panel would go down infamously as one of the worst in the history of this event. This behavior would not halt, however. If anything, it only expedited. She would be reported going to many rallies, such as this Trump rally. Her behavior at rallies and other gatherings would be so boisterous, even Stephen Colbert took digs at her.
Speaking of food, the Phillies team, they have a stadium nut vendor you might know called the Pistachio Girl, who's beloved for antics like this.
Emily Youcis is the Pistachio Girl, they call you.
That's right, baby, pistachios. I'm the pistachio girl. That's right. Everybody loves the pistachio girl. Say, pistachio!
Well, fun story. This week, the Pistachio Girl was fired for being an avowed white nationalist. Then why is she selling pistachios? Cracker Jacks has cracker right in the name. Now, that's the natural fit. That's the fit. Now, obviously, this is upsetting. This is shocking. No one ever expects a beloved nut vendor to be the type of person.
Walnuts, oh yeah!
In autumn of 2016, she would diverge into a full-on white nationalist. In many recorded instances, she shouts conspiracies at rallies and protests. At this point, Emily had not only lost all her connections, but also the entirety of her friends that were not as far off the political spectrum as she was. With the severing of all her connections, she was beyond out of a job. However, an aspect unmentioned in this video was Emily's fixation over a traditional white Aryan relationship. This only demonstrated more by her politically driven comic title, Which Way White Woman? Displaying the difference between a trad wife and a degen. In this defect of politics and the concept of trad Aryan couples, it's no surprise that Emily started to dive deeper into another wavelength of degeneracy, pure neo-Nazism. In late 2018, Emily got married to a neo-Nazi named Warren Ballow. The fixation over being a trad wife had finally paid off. Warren Ballow, one of the founders of the NJP, or the National Justice Party with other white supremacists. The National Justice Party is an anti-Semitic trad white supremacist group, following by the virtue of fighting for white civil rights in the traditional family against the corrupt and illegitimate institutions. It is alleged that Emily now lives in the rural West with 2 children, and I can only imagine what ideals she might be pushing onto the impressionable. Her only internet involvement at this point is a trad Nazi podcast called Dreamwavers, or on her Gab page in which she updates with new politically driven content. And oh boy, seeing her collaborate with her husband on talking about how Jews are killing Christians, I just can't miss this one. As I mentioned previously, Emily's internet usage is very limited to the deepest corners where her political ideologies are allowed and condoned. It has been 7 years since we've seen anything from their NewGrounds page, let alone of Alfred, showing that their artistic spark was overtaken by their politics. The descent from prolific web animator to a white nationalist, traditionalist, neo-Nazi Trump supporter was almost uncanny. For those wondering why, we won't really know. Emily claims to have always had these beliefs, but was only able to express them in a time like 2016. The most obvious assumption, and the easiest way out of discussion on this, frankly, uncomfortable matter, would be that she was pipelined and was always just like this when it came to political ideologies, and that she wasn't a good person from the start. However, many speculate that this matter is more than that of a wrong coping mechanism to deal with severe trauma turning dark, than that of someone being a bad person. Using sites like 4chan and NewGrounds while in a time of mental instability is far from the best option online. That's saying you should even be using the internet as a coping mechanism. Although the tragedy of the situation being extremely blatant, the irony is just as, if not more. Alfred was a reflection of Emily, or how Emily had felt at the time of Alfred's Playhouse. A comprehensive mixture of elements from her life, and struggles put into a character as a form of expression. If you are to claim otherwise, I don't know what to tell you, as Alfred reflects all that occurs in Emily's life. Not to make any conspiracy, however, the concept of a split politically incorrect totalitarian fascist dictator personality taking over to negate the reality of her trauma is almost an exact rendition of what occurred to Emily over the years, possibly even leading her to say that she has always had these beliefs but was only able to express them in a time like 2016. If she suffered a similar situation as Alfred, I don't think it is a reach to say that. As in most recent times, Alfred's Playhouse has been criticized by mindless TikTokers that don't even know the name of the creator or have not done even the surface level research. Just because an expression takes the form of media of being gory, disgusting, even deplorable, doesn't mean it should be explicitly criticized for its contents without taking a deeper look into not only the show's meaning, but also the creator's psyche. Say what you will about the Alfred film. It's clear that as the quality rose and Emily's openness about her politics did as well, it devolved into nothing but a mess. The visual aspects that followed Alfred's Playhouse as its essential successors greatly increase. However, the trade-off was Emily's mental stability and the general contents of the film. To say that Emily wasn't an artist would be a flat-out lie. She clearly had a talent for not only drawing, you're actually listening to her right now. However, the clear talent that she displayed is overwhelmed by the descent into political degeneracy. Emily was a young and talented artist that suffered from mental issues. A young artist that found the wrong outlet as a coping mechanism in the wrong time. Am I implying that Emily would be totally successful and not edgy at all if she didn't originally resort to sites like 4chan and NewGrounds in an attempt to cope? Maybe. There is no telling for sure, of course, and to be fed into said ideals, there has to be some pre-existing bias, even if it's only a little. But at this point, speculating on what could have been lacks purpose. The present is unchangeable, and Emily continues with their ideals, radicalizing them day by day, week by week, post by post. To conclude, I simply want to show a contrast, which demonstrates the mind of Emily Youcis, NewGrounds' worst artist.
Tell them I remember. Tell them I remember.
Yes, that's why I think we should have a multitude of strategies. From normie-friendly American nationalism to hang all knit, kite, and until white Sharia is instated and we can have families again, we need WSWN. White seed willy-nilly. Someone really needs to do something about the unending spam of gay bus sex that has been posted under all of my genocide posts. Is it really a violation of your free speech to not want to see gay penises going in and out of men's assholes in your comment section? I just want to post dead in peace. I don't like goop men. I don't like goop women. Won't go near any damn goop men or any German with a 100-foot pole. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, taking the red pill on Hitler. I've been salty. I don't even know what's happening anymore.